This video will cover the electrical connections on the ED900. It is very important that all of the green terminal blocks be installed before applying power to the unit. Several of the terminal blocks contain jumpers that will prevent the unit from functioning properly if they are not in position. There are three possibilities for inputs to the ED900. The first is the internal input, which uses terminals 42 and 3. You will see the number 3 terminal at multiple locations on the terminal strips. The number 3 terminal is connected to ground. Therefore, by connecting terminal 42 to 3 through some type of normally open switch, you will cause the unit to open. Please note that the ED900 will not begin the timeout period to close the door until the circuit between 42 and 3 is reopened. This will be the case in all three inputs. The internal input is active when the program switch is set to the automatic mode. The next input will be the external input, which uses terminals 41 and 3. The mode of operation is exactly the same as I just described for the internal input. When the program switch is set to exit only, the external input will be blocked from activating the ED900, while the internal input will still function normally. This function will allow egress with no ingress function. The third input is the night bank, which uses terminals 35 and 3. This input has some differences when compared to the internal input and the external input. The previous inputs work from a normally open circuit only. The ED900 is triggered to open by closing a circuit to ground. The night bank input can be configured to work from a normally open or normally closed switch by changing the setting in step 47 of the program. This input also has its own hold open time, which is independent of the normal hold open time before the door closes. This time is set in step 10 of the program. The night bank will function when the program switch is turned off, whereas the internal and external inputs do not. Some typical applications for this trigger could be inputs from smoke detectors or access control for after-hours delivery and pickup. Now we will look at several connections for safety devices. Terminals 15 and 3 are used for the pull side safety circuit. When this circuit is closed, the door will open. The ED900 is shipped with a jumper between these terminals that must be removed when a safety sensor is used. When the safety sensor senses an obstruction, the opening motion of the door will stop. When the obstruction is removed, the door will continue the opening process. If the obstruction is not removed, the ED900 will go through the normal time delay for the open position and then close. This sensor will only affect the opening motion, not the closing motion. An obstruction signal will be ignored in the closing direction. Terminals 11 and 3 are used for the push side safety circuit. When this circuit is closed, the door will close. Again, when the ED900 is shipped, there is a jumper between these terminals that must be removed when a safety sensor is used. When the safety sensor senses an obstruction, the closing motion of the door will stop and the ED900 will reopen the door to the full open position and wait for the obstruction to be removed. When the obstruction is removed, the door will continue the closing process. This sensor will only affect the closing motion, not the opening motion. An obstruction signal will be ignored in the opening direction. Terminals 30 through 34 are used to connect the ED900 to remote program switches. This can be helpful when the ED900 is on a tall door. The program can be easily changed from automatic, hold open, exit only, or turned off from a remote switch located at floor level. Step 22 in the program must be changed to use this function, which switches the input from the internal program switch to the external program switch. Terminals 4 and 4A are used to deactivate the ED900. The ED900 is shipped with a jumper between 4 and 4A to close this circuit. When this circuit is opened, the unit is immediately deactivated, meaning it will go to the closed position. All inputs are ignored. If the door is in the hold open, it will close. And if the door has just opened and is in the process of going through the door delay, it will immediately close. power is still connected to the ED900, but all functions will stop until the circuit is again closed. There are different devices that could be connected to this circuit, and the unit has the ability to use either a normally closed circuit as shipped, or the program can be changed in step 46 to work with a normally open circuit. In this case, the ED900 will be deactivated when the circuit is closed and reactivated when the circuit is open. Now we will look at some of the outputs that are available on the ED900. Terminals 1G and 3 provide 24-volt DC power at 1.5 amps. This is a continuous power supply with no switching ability. Terminals 62, 63, and 64 are dry contacts on a locking relay, which are rated at 1 amp and 48 volt DC or AC. Upon activation of the ED900, this relay will immediately change its position for a momentary open or closure of the contacts. This relay can be used to switch strikes, maglocks, or it can be used as an input trigger for power supplies on items like electric retraction exit devices. Step 14 of the program is used to set a time delay for the opening process to allow a slow-moving lock to completely unlock before the ED900 begins the opening movement. This time delay can be adjusted in step 14 for up to 4,000 milliseconds. If additional time is needed, the ED900 will wait for a signal from the locking device before starting the opening process. Terminals 43 and 3 are used for a locking feedback contact. The maximum time that the ED900 will look for the feedback signal is 5 seconds. The sequence would be an input signal to trigger the ED900. The locking relay, terminals 62, 63, and 64, will immediately switch, but the ED900 will not start the opening process until it receives a signal by closing the circuit between terminals 43 and 3, which will come from the locking device. The last connections we will look at is the status relay, which are terminals 97, 98, and 99. Again, this is a relay with dry contacts, so you can connect your own load with a maximum amperage of 1 amp and up to 48 volts DC or AC. Step 26 of the program instructions describe the different functions of the status relay. As the name indicates, this relay can send out a signal to notify if the door is closed or open. An important point to remember is that the relay is only activated when the ED900 is triggered to open. The relay will not be activated when the door is used manually. It is not like a door position switch. When step 26 is set to 1, the relay will switch when the door reaches the full closed position, and it will stay in that position until the door begins to open electrically, not manually. When step 26 is set to 2, the relay will switch as soon as the door reaches the full open position and will stay there until the door begins to close.